Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the exalted one, the worthy one, the supremely enlightened one. Anto jata bahi jata, jataya jatita paja, tang tang gotama pujjami, ko imang vijataye jatanti. Sile patittaya naro sapanyo cittang panyanca bhavayam atapi nipako bhikkhu so imang vijataye jatanti. The most venerable Mahasangha, friends in the Dhamma, now we are going to discuss one of the discourses named Jata Sutta. Jata Sutta can be seen in two places in Tripitaka in Samyutta Nikaya. One of them can be seen in Devata Samyutta. The other can be seen Brahmana Samyutta. But those two discourses are very same. However, the background is different. This discourse explains the path, how we overcome suffering and problems completely. When we read or listening to Buddha's message, we should be wise to understand what kind of things are explained there. Especially when we listening to a sermon or when we read a sermon, we should understand whether that sermon explains the path of heaven or the path of deliverance. That is the main thing that we should understand. Secondly, we should understand if the deliverance path is explained, what kind of noble truths are explained there. That is very important. There are whether four noble truths are explained, or one truth is explained, three truths are explained, so on. Okay? Can you understand what I am saying? Here, in previous lecture, we listening to Madhupindika Sutta. When we remember that discourse, can you say that how many truths were described there? Actually, that is a very special skill. Especially as monks, we should have that skill. For that, we have to read Netti Pakaran and Petokopadesa. That is very important. In Madhupindika Sutta, we can see they are explained two truths. The arising of suffering and the cessation of suffering. There it says, Chakkuncha Paticha Rupechu Pajati Chakku Vinyanan, Tinna Sangati Passo, like that. When we listening to that sentences, we can understand that is the cause of suffering, the origin of suffering. And also in the next part, it explains that Chakkusming asati, Rupasming asati, Chakku Vinyanang sming asati, like that, so on. Then there we can understand the cessation of suffering. This is a very special skill. This is the place where that we can show our skills. That is very, very important. When we discuss this Jata Sutta, which comes in Brahmana Samyutta, can you understand what are the truths I explained here? There are four noble truths. Dukkha Satya, Samudaya Satya, Nirodha Satya, Magga Satya. Among them, what is the truth that here explains? Here explains especially that Magga Satya, the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. And also here explain another truth that Yattanamancha Rupancha Asesang Upurujyati. What is that? That is the cessation of suffering. Here we can say there are two truths. That is very important. Nirodha Satya and Magga Satya. When I explain some verse or stanza, can you understand how many truths are here? Buddha says, Abhinyayang abhinyatang bhave tabbancha bhavitam pahatabban pahiname. How many truths are here in one stanza? How many? Abhinyayang abhinyatang bhave tabbancha bhavitang. Next, pahatabban pahiname. How many truths? 3. Abhinyaya means dukkha satya, bhave tabbancha, magga satya, and next, pahatabban, what should be overcome? Nirodha Satya. Sorry, Magga Satya. Bhave tabba, abhinyaya dukkha satya, bhave tabba magga satya, and also pahatabba samudaya satya. These 3 truths are explained in this same stanza, like that we should have this skill. If you want to develop this skill, we have to understand and read some books like Petakopadesa and Nettipakarana. As soon as we read a discourse or we listening to a discourse, at the very beginning, we should know this truth, this skill. That is very, very important. I think this discourse can be read by anyone. Read in a book, that is very easy. But as monks, we should have this skill. You are the greatest treasure in this sasana. Therefore, we should be qualified when we go to the society as speakers. That is very important. And also, when we listening to Dhamma, Buddha says, we should understand Vimuktayatana, the doors of liberation, the entrances of liberation. There are 5 doors or entrances we can see in Buddha's message according to Vimuktayatana Sutta. Listening to Dhamma is a place where we can liberate from suffering. Preaching Dhamma is a place that we can liberate from suffering. Remembering or memorizing the Dhamma is a place where we can liberate. Sajjayana or chanting is a place where we can liberate from suffering. And also, 5th one, Bhavana. Practicing Samatha and Vipassana is a place where we can liberate from suffering. When we see this message, it is very clear. Listening to Dhamma is not just a learning or hearing, but that is a place where we can liberate from suffering. When we have a discussion, actually we can use it as a place where we can liberate. If we have correct vision and attention, we can use it usefully, meaningfully. That is very important. And also, when we see the Buddha's message, Buddha says very clearly, Janato aham bhikkhave passato asavanam kahang vadami no ajanato no apassato. I proclaim the liberation for those who know the path, who see the path. What should be seen or known? The Four Noble Truths. Without knowing the Four Noble Truths, we are unable to overcome negativities or unwholesome mental states, especially avidya, the root of unwholesomeness, that ignorance or delusion. Therefore, we should have clear understanding at the very beginning of the path of practice. Sammaditthi pure javang, right understanding is first. But always encourage us to gain knowledge or understanding before we start our spiritual journey. For that, we have to associate with spiritual friends again and again. And also, we should listen to what they say. And also, according to what we listening to, we have to develop our wise consideration or yoniso manasikara again and again. This is the Buddhist path. In this discourse, we can see very clearly the path that leads to getting rid of suffering, Magga Satya. And also here it says the results also. A Brahmin came to Buddha when Buddha was in Savatthi. He asked a question. Anto jata bahi jata jataya jatita padat pajat tantang gotama puchami koimang vijate jatam. A tangle inside, a tangle outside. This generation is entangled in a tangle. I ask you this, O Gautama, who can disentangle this tangle. He asks, people are in this world, they have problem mentally, and also they have outside problems too. He asks the way how we overcome these problems or tangles. There Buddha says, in short, Sile patittahaya narosapanyo chittang panyancha bhavayam atapi nipako bhikkhu soimang vijate jatam. A man established in virtue, discerning, developing discernment and mind, a monk, ardent, astute, he can untangle this tangle. If a person can practice three disciplines, virtue, concentration, and wisdom, he is able to overcome these tangles. In short, Buddha has explained here the way how we overcome suffering. This discourse came another place, that Jata Sutta in Devata Samutta. That is a very famous sutta. All of you know very well. Visuddhi Magga, written by Bhante Buddhaghosa, based on Jata Sutta. Visuddhi Magga, Bhante Dhamma, you know Visuddhi Magga? Yes, the path of purification. This discourse is the foundation of that sutta, that book. Here, we can see the path very clearly. Gradually, we can go forward. The final stanza explains, Yatta namancha rupancha asesang upurujyati patigang rupa sanyacha ettesa chidyate jatam. Where mentality and corporeality, along with perception of in-pigment and form, completely cease without trash, that is where the tangle is cut. Wherever Nam and Rupa, mentality and corporeality, completely cease without trash, that is the place where we can cut all the problems. Nama Rupa. Nama Rupa is a very special topic in Buddhism. Sometimes Buddha explains Nama Rupa Paccaya Vijnanam. Sometimes Buddha has explained only Nama Rupa. When Buddha explains Nama Rupa Paccaya Vijnanam, there Nama has three aggregates: Vedana, Sanya, Sankara. And Rupa is Rupa Kanda, and Vijnana means Vijnana Kanda. But here, Vijnana Kanda or Vijnana is initiable. Here we can add Vijnana or consciousness to Nama or mentality. Here Nama includes four aggregates: Vedana, perception, Vedana, feeling, Sanya, perception, Sankhara, mental formations, and Vijnana, consciousness. These four things are included into Nama. And Rupa means Rupa Kanda, the aggregate of form. Rupa Kanda. Buddha says, if wherever Nam and Rupa, mentality and corporeality, completely cease without trash, that is the place where we can overcome all the tangles inside and outside. When we see the Buddha's message in the primary level, there are a lot of categories we can see about our experience. Atita, Vartamana, Anagata, Adhyatmika, Bahira, Hina, Pranita, like that. Present, past, future, internal, external, near, far, such as we can see several steps, variations. However, when we go to the deeper level, it is clear we overcome duality, not internal and external. All things belong to internal. That is why the Buddha says in Rohitassa Sutta, Imasmin eva vyamamatte kale bare sasanyimhi lokancha panyapemi loka samudayancha panyapemi loka nirodhancha panyapemi loka nirodhagamini patipadancha panyapemi. Sasara, or samsaric journey and the cessation of samsaric journey depends on within us, within 5 aggregates. It is very clear. Bhante, I appreciate you. Without trace, I'm sorry, without remaining anything, without trace, if we can overcome all the Nam and Rupa without trace, that is the path of liberation. Here, you should understand how these mental formations is. As we mentioned before, we have 3 behaviors: Vijnanacharya, Ajnanacharya, and Jnanacharya. Vijnanacharya means conscious behavior. When we contact something, the very first experience is very pure. That is Vijnanacharya or conscious behavior. That very first experience of 5 aggregates at the beginning, they arise and cease. This first experience, we have only primary level understanding, not a very complete understanding. We have only a shadow through our senses. We usually understand something first experience has ceased. Here, it is very important to understand we mostly understand something after the cessation of 5 aggregates in the extreme of arising, samudayante. When we see something, when we hear something, when we smell something, when we taste something, we usually understand after the cessation of these experiences. However, if we are ignorant, as soon as we see something, we think that still it is happening. For example, when you look at me, usually someone sees that this person is at this moment. It is true that we can contact him at the moment. But when you recognize me, actually, you recognize something with details, then you understand me through your mind consciousness. At the moment, if someone sees that there is person outside, it means we are in the extreme of arising, samudayanta. There we have I form, I consciousness, eye contact, so on. As the Madhupindika Sutta explained, here there says very clearly, Chakkuncha paticca rupecha uppajjati chakku vijnanam. There it says, Chakkusmin sati, when the eye is here, forms can be seen, and also consciousness is here, eye contact is here. Everything still we have in this world. It means we end everything with prapancha, trishna, drustimana. We can't stop in the middle if we have taken our eye as me, as myself. That is the extreme of arising of aggregates or senses or contact. Sparsantaya, sparsa samudayante. Whenever we are in the extreme of the corner of contact, it means we are included into the dependent origination, with starts with ignorance. They are salayatana. Avidya patya sankara. Ignorance conditions mental formations. Mental formations condition consciousness. Then consciousness conditions mentality and corporeality. Vijnana patya nama rupam. Then we can see senses nama rupa patya salayatana. Mentality and corporeality conditions 6 senses. There we can see senses. It means even though the senses have ceased, still they are in our world. It means we are in the samsaric circle. We are with suffering. We are with jara marana, decay and death. We are having all the sufferings at the moment. How do we overcome this ignorance? If you are clever to understand, when we see something, I can contact something through my eye. I can get the primary level shadow or color, but I recognize that color, which is that I recognize color and shape, everything through my mind consciousness with applying some experiences which happened in the past. If you have this understanding, as soon as we see something, if we are in mindfulness and wisdom, we don't go to the extreme of arising, but we are in the extreme of cessation. We are experiencing the cessation, arising and ceasing. There we are in wisdom. There we are on the path. Avidyāyatveva asesa viraga nirodho sankara nirodha. With the cessation of ignorance completely, mental formations cease. With the complete cessation of consciousness, with the cessation of mental formations, vijnana or consciousness ceases. If we are on this path, we have no salayatana, 6 senses. It means we use 6 senses, but we don't get it at the moment as me, as myself. There we have no nama and rupa, since we are in the jnana charya. We are in wise behavior. Wise behavior means reflecting on impermanence. It says very clearly in Patisambhida Magga, in Charya Nanatta Jnana, whenever a person contemplates on impermanence, especially whenever a person practices insight meditation as anicca, dukkha, anatta, and if a person on the path of the stream entry, sotapanna, when a person is on the path of sakadagami, anagami, or Arahanta. If a person is completely in Nibbana, that person is in the cessation. He is in the Vinyan, he is in the Jnanacharya or wise behavior. At the moment, his mind has no raga, no dosa, no moha, no mana. He has no lust, no anger, no ignorance, no conceit. This is the place where we can overcome suffering. Whenever our mind is fixed in outside material world, it means we are not away from suffering. At this moment, we can be silent. We can be in equanimity. However, if we think there is something outside, anytime we can suffer. Since we have taken something outside as permanent, when it changes, immediately we get suffering. If we can understand the outside world has already ceased, I associate my own mind. That mind also impermanent. This present mind also not permanent. It every moment arises and ceases. Then we see nothing as me, as myself. We see everything as impermanent, as dissatisfactory, as selfless. In this discourse, the Buddha explains, Yatta namancha ropancha asesang uparujjati. Wherever name and form or mentality and corporeality along with perception completely cease without trace, it means we have cut all the tangles, problems, sufferings. In this moment also, Nama and Rupa have ceased. But our ignorance doesn't believe it. Every moment, even Putujana, like we, wordlings, live with 4 aggregates, but because of our ignorance, we have 5 aggregates. The reason is that in our internal world, the form hasn't ceased. We have taken it as me, as myself. This is the main root of suffering. If we can develop our wisdom, this wisdom can be developed in 3 stages. Sutta the knowledge of hearing. Second, Chinta the knowledge of contemplating or thinking. And Bhavana the knowledge or wisdom with practicing Samatha and Vipassana. First of all, we should have clear understanding how suffering arises. Suffering arises because of ignorance. Suffering means jara, marana, soka, parideva, like that. They arise because of jati, birth. Jati arises because of bhava, becoming. So on, we can see the very first root of all sufferings, that avidya, ignorance. Ignorance is the main reason, main root of all the sufferings. If we understand this truth, what the Buddha explained, we can decide. We are unable to change the first one, vijnana charya, or conscious behavior. We always contact something through our senses. Even Arhantas have this experience. Buddha never advises us to overcome the first truth, dukkha satya. Dukkha satya should not be overcome, that should be understood. In Buddha's time, there were some ascetic people. They advised their disciples to overcome I form, I consciousness in the primary level, in the first experience, their vipaka or result, or dukkha satya. Buddhism never says us to overcome the first truth, dukkha satya. Dukkha satyang parinyayam. The noble truth of suffering should be understood. When we understand the first truth in mindfulness and wisdom, if we are on the path of liberation, which is the Noble Eightfold Path, we always practice a step, that mindfulness. We don't give any chance to come any defilement to our mind if we are mindful and wise. We know very well, whenever we are ignorant, whenever we are unmindful, suffering comes to us and it brings us suffering. If we trust in Buddha's message, how suffering arises, we are afraid of having suffering. Then we always try to overcome attachment with this understanding. For that, Buddha has explained a path. Sile patittaya naro sapanyo chittang panyancha bhavayam. If a person can practice sila samadhi panya, virtue, tranquility or concentration, and wisdom, this is the path, this is the Magga Satya, this is the noble path that leads to getting rid of suffering. Sila can be seen in the path of heaven too. There we practice sila as a meritorious act, as a step of going for a blissful life. But when we come to the deliverance path, we practice sila as the foundation of our spiritual development. When we practice sila or virtue in the primary level, sometimes it is boring. We are like in the prison when we practice sila in the primary level, because we have no clear understanding about the path. When someone says, be aware of your speech and behavior, then we think that they advise me, they punish me, like that. Actually, when we understand the path, when we have correct vision, we practice virtue happily. We know very well, the more we practice virtue, the more we overcome suffering. That is a real safety. With this understanding, Buddha says, Anumattesu vajjesu baidasavi. The person who has come to the path says, as fear, even a slight wrong activity. And also, when he goes forward, Nachakuddhan samachare kinchi yena vinyo pare upavadeyo. When a person has correct vision, and also when he is on the path of liberation, he doesn't do any slight wrong conduct, which is censored by the wise. He considers that sila or virtue as a safety. He is so comfortable practicing sila, discipline in his speech and behavior. Buddha says, when you speak something, reflect on it again and again, whether it is correct. When you behave something, contemplate on it again and again, whether it is correct. This is the nature of sila or virtue or moral conduct explained by the Buddha for the liberation. With this sila, we become the next level, samadhi or concentration. Using a meditation technique, concentration meditation techniques, we concentrate our mind in a particular object for a long time in the present moment. We can practice metta bhavana, loving kindness meditation, anapanasati bhavana, breathing meditation. Using these meditation techniques, little by little, we concentrate our mind in a silent place. The more we gain concentration, the more we overcome negativities, especially hindrances from our mind. Sensual pleasure, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, skeptical doubts. These are the negativities that disturb our peace of mind. When we come to this level, we can see the results within us. What is the result? The result is inner peace, happiness. We are creating a safe refuge within us. Then little by little, we are going away from depending on outside. If we don't have this inner peace in the second level in concentration meditation, we are always looking at outside like beggars. You know beggars? They always waiting for someone, asking something. Because their happiness, their life depends on outside. When we have made a refuge within us, especially by practicing concentration meditation, our inner peace gradually increases, and also we are mostly silent. Here we can see a very huge discipline in our speech. We don't recommendation from outside. We can check by ourselves. our activities are very limited, and also our speech is very disciplined with this understanding. The reason is that we have a special duty within us in our spiritual world. We have created a refuge within us associating with the triple gem, the Buddha, Buddha's enlightenment, Dhamma, Buddha's message, Sangha, the good example of the noble disciples. These are the refuge for our life. If we have this priceless refuge within us, we don't find any other refuge from outside for our liberation. It doesn't mean that we don't go to a doctor or we don't go to a garage like that. Don't misunderstand. We go to visit our parents, we go to a doctor, we go to a shopping mall, garage. We can go for our material purposes. But spiritually, we don't need support from outside. Already we have created the refuge within us associating with the triple gem. Day by day, we develop our inner peace by practicing concentration meditation. We increase the duration of concentration meditation. Buddha has explained very clearly in the discourse of Abhinya, which comes in Anguttara Nikaya. As a wise person who was born in this world, the highest qualities that he can practice with his supramundane level is that samatha and vipassana. Our success completely depends on our happiness. Our happiness depends on the duration of practicing tranquility and insight meditation. These are the higher qualities that we can practice as wise persons. Now we have concentration. The more we have concentration or tranquility, the more we reflect on impermanence. Namarupa, Namarupa Vijnana, Skandha, Ayatana, Dhatu. These are the things that we reflect on as impermanent, as dissatisfactory, as selfless. In this discourse, Buddha has explained we have to reflect on impermanence with Nama and Rupa, mentality and corporeality. In short, with details, 5 aggregates. Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana belong to Namaskanda, Nama. And Rupa belongs to Rupa. 5 aggregates are summarized into Nama and Rupa. When mind gains concentration, we reflect on form is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, sanya or perception is impermanent, sankhara or mental formations are impermanent, vijnana or consciousness is impermanent. When we reflect on this reality again and again, we overcome the extreme of arising or samudayanta. We mostly are in the samudayanta or the extreme of arising. When we reflect on impermanence, we go to the extreme Actually, we can say it as an extreme. Buddha has explained to overcome extremes. Over the extremes, here we use only a word, don't misunderstand. This is a way how we think Nirodhanta. Nirodha means we reflect on these five aggregates have ceased. For that, we have to reflect on it again and again. It is arising and ceasing. Buddha says, if a person can practice this path, sila patittaya, having moral conduct or virtue, practicing concentration, and if he can reflect on impermanence as wisdom, then he can overcome suffering. He can cut all the tangles. If we are on the extreme of arising, a person can blame us once. If we are ignorant, we are blamed again and again. A person can blame us once. If we think it again and again ignorantly, we are blamed again and again. Sometimes that person has forgotten everything. He doesn't know that he has blamed. But we think that that person blamed me at that moment. It is not fair. Again and again we think, while we are thinking, that person doesn't know anything. In the samudayanta, with ignorance, we are blamed again and again. A person can hit you once, but if we are ignorant, we are hit again and again. The first experience has already ceased. Now we are blamed, we are hit, we are punished by ourselves because of ignorance. Buddha says, if a person can practice its path with correct understanding by following Sila Samadhi Panya, or the Noble Eightfold Path, that person is able to overcome all the sufferings, all the tangles, inside and outside. If you have this understanding, if we trust in this message, if you are confident in this message, inner motivation increases. Buddha has explained his message very clearly. Having such a message, why do we suffer? Because of his great dedication and effort, we are given a very special message for liberation. Having this message, we should not suffer. Therefore, we sacrifice our everything for our inner peace, liberation. When we discuss this discourse, especially Jata Sutta explains us to practice Sila Samadhi Panya. It is in short. Sometimes Buddha has explained you have to practice only concentration and wisdom. Sometimes Buddha says we have to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Samma Ditti, Samma Sankappa, like that. Sometimes Buddha says you have to practice 7 enlightenment factors. If we have correct understanding, vision, Samma Ditti, we find the path according to our mental situation, according to our interest. If we like to practice in short, we have to practice only one, which is wisdom, reflecting on impermanence. In Buddha's time, there were some gifted persons who directly explained Vipassana Pobangama Samatha, concentration through wisdom. When Buddha met very gifted persons, Buddha explained his message in short. Anicca, dukkha, anatta, like that. By practicing insight meditation, they concentrate their mind, that says as Vipassana Pobangama Samatha. But the Buddha usually explains the gradual path, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Virtue or discipline in our speech and behavior, and Samatha, concentration and wisdom. But here it is very important to understand Sammaditthi or the Four Noble Truths. That is very, very important. As disciples, when we read the discourse or when we listen to a discourse, we should be wise to understand what the truths are there. In this discourse, it is very clear. We can say Magga Satya and Nirodha Satya. Magga Satya means the path that leads to getting rid of suffering. In short, Sila, Samadhi, Panya. And also Yatta Namancha Rupancha Asya Sangukurujyati. Wherever Nama and Rupa, mentality and corporeality, or five aggregates, completely cease, that is the place where we can liberate. This is the Jata Sutta in short. If you have any question, you can ask in next session. Please get ready to ask question, and then we will have a good discussion. Here, it is very important to understand Saddha, Dukkhopanisa Saddha, with suffering as proximate cause, faith. When we understand the Four Noble Truths, faith or confidence in Buddha's enlightenment arises. And Saddhopanisa Pamojjang, with faith as proximate cause, gladness. So on, little by little, our all spiritual faculties increase. Finally, we can become liberation. The very important thing is we go forward on this path, developing our happiness. The very visible results that we receive throughout practicing this path is increase in our inner peace or happiness. That is why in Buddha's time, some other people, some other traditional ascetic people, they ask Buddha, our disciples, their faces are not pleasant, but your disciples' faces are very pleasant. They are so happy. What is the reason? Buddha says, they are interested in practicing this path. The reason is that when we reduce our negativities, raga, dosa, and moha, our mind is pure, then our happiness increases. And also the other thing, when we practice samatha, one day in Buddha's time, some other religious people asked the Buddha's disciples, we also practice loving kindness meditation. Your master, Gautama Buddha, also explains the Metta Bhavana, loving kindness meditation. Therefore, both of us are same. We all are same. At that moment, those monks had no answer. They were silent. They came back to the Buddha. And they explained what happened to them. Then Buddha says, monks, you had to say, although they also practice loving kindness meditation, our Metta Bhavana, concentration meditation, or loving kindness meditation has a difference. In Buddha's time, there were a lot of ascetic people who practice concentration or samatha. Therefore, some people thought that all of them are same. But Buddha says very clearly, in Buddha Sasana, there is a difference in concentration meditation. What is that? Buddha says, we practice loving kindness meditation, viveka nisitang, viraga nisitang, nirodha nisitang, vasagga parinami. Concentration or samatha is not the final destination of a Buddhist follower. It is the middle. The middle is excellent, but that is not the destination. We practice concentration meditation or samatha bhavana, viveka nisitang, with seclusion, nirodha nisitang, reflecting on cessation, viraga nisitang, with dispassion, vasagga parinaming, focusing on liberation. What is the reason? What is the cause? The cause is that we have started this spiritual path with sammaditthi. What is the sammaditthi? Sammaditthi is right understanding is that dukkhe jnanam, samudaya jnanam, nirodha jnanam, magga jnanam. When mind gains concentration, we reflect on the Four Noble Truths. As you know, when we practice mindfulness in the fifth level, we practice Dhammanupassana. There, we contemplate on Four Noble Truths again and again. The main cause is that reason is that we have started this spiritual path with a clear understanding of the Four Noble Truths. Whenever mind gains concentration, we are hurried to contemplate on these four things. That is our favor. That is the difference of a disciple of a Buddha and other person. Suffering in Buddhism is not a painful suffering. It is a very beautiful word in Buddhism. Unfortunately, the dukkha cannot be translated into another language as it is. That is the very big disadvantage that we have. if we can develop, if we can raise this real meaning of dukkha satya, all the people in the world will come to practice this path. The person who practices suffering is the person who is the happiest person in this world. He never worry. The very first experience is very pure. That is why it says the very first consciousness is pure. We trained our mind come to the back. Living in the present moment with mindfulness, we see the beauty of our mind with a pure heart. Then we can liberate from suffering. In this discourse, Jata Sutta would explain the path in short. As soon as we experience something through our senses, we have to do only one thing, reflecting on impermanence, arising and ceasing of Nama Rupa. Then Nama Rupa says, we don't take anything outside, even inside. That we know very well, everything has ceased. This is the place where we can overcome suffering. This is the place where we can solve the problem. But you should understand, Buddhism is very practicable. Even though we practice this path, we should live in the ordinary society. We work with the ordinary people. Then we understand the nature of the society. Living with them, we are like lotus flowers, which origin in the mud and which come from over the mud. But we associate with them without defilements. And also, we do our duties and responsibilities as much as we can. We have a balanced livelihood. We can manage everything because the Buddha's disciples is the very successful person in this world. In one side, he has loving kindness. If we have loving kindness, we can associate with anyone successfully, more successfully than other people. And also on the other side, we have mindfulness, practicing all the doctrines day by day, we can go forward. The Supreme Buddha explains here the direct path for getting rid of all the tangles or sufferings using 3 stanzas. Okay, thank you so much for your listening and your patience. By the power of all these activities and spiritual development, may our all the spiritual wishes meet with success, and may all of us attain the final bliss of liberation. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.